Fighting for Honor, the history of African martial art traditions in the Atlantic world. Professor T.J. Dush Obi. I will start from the second paragraph on page 12 and end with the top of page 13. Then I'll go to the back of the book to overkill my point. I believe page 217. I'll tell you when I get there. And I'm going to explore how martial arts culture, martial arts philosophies, were used as a kind of armor against psychological abuse and other forms of abuse that the white slave masters were doing to the bondsmen or slaves. And how mental health certainly has been aware of this for a long, long time. Furthermore, I will show how the logical conclusion is to fight your oppressor to the death when they are doing what they are doing to me. Think very carefully and listen carefully, please. The importance of following these African martial arts into the Americas becomes clear when one considers that while it was economic in its objective, the slave system was ultimately held together by physical and symbolic, real or threatened, violence. Therefore, it should not be surprising that at times African combat traditions were used in the Americas as forms of self-defense against this violence. Many of the bondsmen who rose up in the Haitian Revolution may have relied on previous military experience and their stick and machete fighting arts. While such skills were at times used as forms of direct resistance, martial arts were more often used as means to fight for honor within the confines of bondage. These fights for honor in urban Brazil were often just as sanguine as the armed revolts more emphasized by many historians. For example, the Muslim uprising of 1835 in Bahia left only 9 people dead. Despite the possession of firearms by the participants, all the dead victims were wounded by swords, knives, and lances, showing that the few firearms the rebels were able to gather did nothing more than weigh them down, quote unquote. In contrast, this number could have been equally the result of 1 week of activity by groups of bondsmen in Rio, practicing the martial art of capoeira. As a police official reported of capoeira experts in the 1850s, in only 1 afternoon of the month of February, they committed 7 murders in the parish of Santa Ana. That's 1 afternoon. Certainly, many more whites were killed during the 1828 uprising of German and Irish mercenaries who were mowed down in large numbers by the capoeira experts. Now, this isn't the only example in this book. It's full of examples of blacks dominating the martial arts in North and South America. I mean, it leaves one with no doubt in their mind, using the facts, that Africans, black Africans, are the best martial artists in North and South American history. With this in mind, I do not want to stress the art's counter-hegemonic use to an extent that overshadows its use in gaining positions in service to the power structure or its creative roles in community performance and the enforcement of codes of honor. The continued use of martial arts in community performance rituals, conflict resolutions, courting, and honor in the Americas was equally important to enslaved Africans. Listen very carefully, please. This cultural aspect acted as a form of social and psychological defense against the symbolic violence of racial slavery. The ideology of racism that underpinned the slave system presented a dominant image of Africans as without culture, history, or honor. By using these martial arts to reaffirm their self-worth, they were engaging in an equally important struggle against the symbolic violence that still plagues their descendants in the Americas. Now, I can't help but think about how even the liberals seek to take that from us. We all know the conservatives, tend to be scum. But we look at the liberals' arguments, right? Just because you're a good martial artist doesn't mean this, that, and the other thing, right? trying to emasculate you. Oh, you ain't shit, right? A bunch of liberal mental health ninnies trying to drug you, saying you have delusions of grandeur, right? Who are you? You ain't shit, right? Using their scale. Fuck your opinion. Fuck your slave-based culture, you know, your slave system-based culture, your psychology-based culture. Who are you to say anything to me? I am your spiritual superior, and your ancestors were on their knees agreeing. Don't you ever, 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 ever in your sniveling lives ever forget that. Page 217. Frederick Douglass, following his triumphant confrontation with Covey, echoes this sentiment, writing that a man without force is without the essential dignity of humanity. Can't help but think about mental health taking the guns away and drugging people like me in a way that cripples them. Thus, fighting ability under the right circumstances provided exceptional individuals with the force to demand dignity. Even the less fortunate, who were killed in their attempts to defend their honor, died fighting as proud women and men. Both they and the more successful claimed their bodies as their own. Funny how they will extract ideas from this and take the African right out of it. Sovereignty of our bodies while we're force medicating you. A bunch of liberals covertly drugging me, you know, and crying about having sovereignty over their bodies at the same time. Not a single peep about psychiatry while they do that. Unbelievable. My videos are more than just a challenge. My challenge is more than just a challenge. It is a revolutionary act. It is the brilliant idea of a freedom fighter. In my opinion, isn't some conformist's fucking 2 cents, which aren't worth even that. I want my 2 cents back, you bitch. My opinion is the only one that counts once you put it into context. Fuck their opinion. I have my own history, my own culture, my own ideas of honor. How dare you oppressors even think for 1 second that it is okay to even begin to think about trying to fucking make me think like you sniveling, cheating ass motherfuckers. Your trickery, crony capitalism-based culture is despicable. And the Lord thinks that your culture is an abomination because it allows you to do this to the top martial artist, which my culture does not allow for.
To my non-black brothers, I hope you will teach your kids this lesson so you don't make the same mistake that the opposition view did. I warned them the whole time. They've utterly disgraced themselves. When you take someone's rightful place away from them and you make a half-assed, ridiculous argument as to why, it launches them on a journey of going out of their way to explain themselves and to highlight why they're right, if they care at all about that position. So it is a very stupid idea, and the risks are great. And in this case, America has to live with the disgrace for what they've been doing to me on top of everything else. And you pretty much have to be a drugged up, beer guzzling moron to be proud to be an American. So let this be a lesson to everyone. And hopefully our country one day stops this nonsense called white denial. Thank you. You see how they twist everything, you know, from honor to good. What is a good idea? If you're doing God's work, it is a good idea. But to a bunch of chicken shit Yankee pussies, you know, if it's dangerous, it's not a good idea. You see how they're cowards and they're pussies? And it's like that sniveling coward who stayed behind while the brave warriors were fighting is the one whose philosophy is being impressed upon everybody. You see that? You know? They think saving face is honor and not truly having honor. You know? They think being a bootlicking coward is a good idea, but doing God's work isn't. Even though good and God are spelled in a similar way for a fucking reason. It's the old, We control grammar for the psychological effect it has on people. Yes, we're redefining things on purpose. We're doing this kind of wordplay, psychology, trickery on purpose. That's why we insist you use proper grammar. Yeah, some of the darkies picked up on that and they were doing this Ebonics kind of, Jamaican stuff on purpose. But you're still going to use proper grammar. Hopefully they don't know that people who talk like that tend to be bitches and that's part of it. Oh, we're still, oh shit.